Hi, so today I wanted to share some tips on how you can read when you have young children. So let's get started. So this is a continuation of a video that I shared recently. In that video, I give some of the reasons for why I think it's good to read when you're a new parent or just a parent in general. If you haven't checked that out, I'll leave that in the description box down below. So I do have a few tips or ways in which you can read when you have children. And just to give you a little bit of background, I'm a fairly new parent. I have two children. They are really close in age. My oldest is just a little over 2 years old, and my youngest is a little over 7 months old. So life is pretty crazy, but I do have some tips on how you can read with children. So let's get into those. The first is you can listen to books on audiobooks. And this is a really great method. I find that listening to books on audiobooks works really well if you're trying to get through some chores during nap time, or you're making a meal or something like that. It's really nice to just have the books playing in the background, so that way you can be doing several things at once. Another way you can listen to audiobooks really well when you have children is if you have any type of commute or you're traveling for the summer or to see family or something and you have a little bit of time in the car. I recommend listening to audiobooks then. And then the third way is to just pull up an audiobook and go for a walk with your child, and you can just have the audiobook playing while you go for the walk, and you can be getting some exercise, some sunshine, and also learning about a new topic. So I think that's another great way to listen to some books. Another way that you can read is to utilize and really take advantage of nap times or early bedtime. So in this method, you can read whenever they sleep. So that one's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't spend too much time on that. Another thing you can do is tag team it and have your partner watch your child or children for a few minutes while you have some time to yourself and read them. My husband and I have done that on occasion, and that works really well when I just really need a little bit more of a break and I want to sit down for a little bit longer than just a few minutes. So if you'd like the chance to be able to read a whole chapter rather than just a few pages at a time, I recommend taking a book to appointments. So if you have a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment or anything like that, if you arrive early, it's really great to be able to bring a book, and rather than playing on your phone or doing something like that, you can be reading a book, and that works really, really well. I recently did that. I had both a doctor's and a dentist appointment, and I brought this book with me, and I was able to read a couple of chapters while I was there and waiting. So that worked out really well, and that made both appointments a little bit more enjoyable. So the final tip that I have is to read with your children, and I recommend doing this by reading aloud. I think that there are so many great benefits to this. I mentioned a little bit in the last video. I think it is really soothing and comforting for your children to hear your voice. It exposes them to new vocabulary. You get to say new things. Here I have a book called 50 Psychology Classics, and I have been reading this over the past few months. So it does take a little bit longer to read using this method, but I do find that I am actually able to read and complete books. With this book, and I'll show a little bit of footage, there are 50 different psychology classic books that are recommended in here, and there is a brief synopsis of the book and the ideas and theories and how it really impacted the psychology field, and then also a little bit of a bio on the authors. So this is just a really fascinating read. It's very short and digestible. Most of the sections are just a few pages, so I can read those aloud over breakfast with my children, and my son already recognizes the book, and he really looks forward to whenever I can bring it out and read aloud. He really enjoys that. Even though he doesn't understand most of what's in here, he loves to hear me read books. So this is a great book to read. You can just get over a few sections, and if you take 10 sections every month, you'll be finished within 5 months. So under half a year, you'll be able to complete this book reading just a few sections each month. Another great book that you can read is a book like this. This is called The Life-Changing Manga of Tidying Up. This is a wonderful, wonderful, and very fun book written by Marie Kondo, sharing a little bit more of her theory and technique in a little bit more of a fun way. This is the first manga or comic book type book that I've ever read, so I really enjoyed this. My husband bought this for me a couple of months ago as a treat, just to help me feel better as I was struggling at that point, and so I really love that. This book just really makes me so happy and smile every time I see it, and it is a very good read, so I definitely recommend checking this out. As I mentioned, it has obviously lots of pictures since it's manga, and so it's very, very easy and quick to read. So you could read this in just a couple of sittings. And of course there are chapters in here, so you could just sit down and in a few minutes read each chapter and do that a couple of times and in the span of a week. Or if you want to just sit down with your partner watching the kids, you could read this in one afternoon very, very easily. So this is another great type of book to read. Another recommendation I have is to maybe change the way that you read. So rather than trying to read through whole chapters in a single sitting, since our time is a little bit more limited when you have young children and things come up at a moment's notice, it's a little bit harder to sit down and read whole chapters or longer sections. So I recommend just finding some books or getting used to the idea of just sitting down and reading smaller sections. So that's why I really like the 50 Psychology Classics. It's just a few pages, and I have complete ideas that I can think about from just those few pages. And then I can also have additional resources to check out later if I like any of those classics. My husband and I read this when we were very new parents with our first child, and we read this aloud. It was really nice to be able to read one or two sections of these and then just talk about it while we were eating a meal or while our son was napping, and we were just kind of recovering and figuring out how to do this whole parenting thing. So in this book, there are just a couple of sections, and they're very, very short. They're a couple of pages at most. Some of them are just a page or two. And so again, you can go through and get complete ideas and read in just a few moments and have some things to think about and kind of digest throughout the day, which is really, really helpful. Another type of book like that is this book here. It's called The Intellectual Devotional. This is a book that I really enjoy. There are lots of other types of devotionals that you could check out as well, but I like this one because, again, it has very, very short sections. I'll show some up-close footage of this as well, and you can see here every day of the week there is a different topic covered, and that's really helpful and interesting and keeps it just really fascinating. And each section or each day is only a page long, so it's very, very easy to read. And again, you're learning about different things. So for instance, on Monday history is addressed, on Tuesday literature, on Wednesday visual arts, Thursday is science, Friday is music, Saturday is philosophy, and Sunday is religion. As you're eating breakfast or drinking coffee, you could read aloud one of these, and again, in a year, you've read a whole new book, and you've learned about a variety of topics within 7 different categories. So I think that's really cool too. So those are some of the tips and tricks that I have for reading books. I really, really love to read books. It is just really fun. I love to learn about new things, and I think it just sets a great example for my children. I love to read, and I really want to impart that to them. So far, my first son loves to read. We could read books to him all day, and it would still not even be enough. He loves to read. So we do read a lot of books, children's books, to him as well. But I really enjoy reading books that I also like and that are more my reading level too. And the psychology person in me is kind of coming out a little bit, but I think that reading is one way that I'm able to maintain a little bit more of my identity as an individual. When I got married, I got an identity of wife. When I became a mother and had children, I gained the identity of mother and parent, and while I love those identities and I'm so happy about those, I also am still an individual. I still have my own identity as an individual. I am Jen, and I do have unique interests and hobbies, and I want to make sure that I continue to cultivate those interests and hobbies and to really invest and kind of nourish in myself a little bit. I think my favorite romantic comedy movie is Blended with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But in that video, they talk about being parents and how 90% of the time your life, your focus, your energy, everything is just on your kids. But every now and again, it's nice to just get about 10% that you can just give to yourself. And I just really like that. That really just makes a lot of sense to me. I love giving so much of myself to my kids and being there for them, but I also know that I do need to take care of myself. I'm a person and I need care and attention as well. I'll include some footage to show you some of the books that I have completed since I became a parent 2 years ago, and then I will also show you the books that I'm currently reading. And as you can see, I do have quite a few books that I'm currently in the process of reading. Some of these books I'm reading with my husband and we're reading together and discussing, and then some of the books I'm reading on my own. And I kind of like to have several books that I'm working through at one time, just so that way I have a little bit of variety, and no matter what mood I'm in, I have something that I can read. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, comment down below, and let me know what your thoughts are. I hope that you have a great day. Bye!